Hello, people. This is Sharon Marie Chester, licensed clinical social worker and racially literate white person. I wanted to talk today about who a racist is and what racist is. So, starting out, let's make this easy. All white people are conditioned to be racist from birth. It is our upbringing, it's our conditioning. The word racist is not just some crotchety old white person who uses the N-word, who has no political teeth, okay? Racist is both a noun and an adjective. And I'll use it in a sentence both ways. Until they recognize racist narratives and stop buying into them, all white people are conditioned to be racist. You may not want to be a racist and still be one. You may not even recognize that you're a racist and still be one. But people who are racially literate often recognize racism and racists before the racist does. Becoming an anti-racist involves becoming racially literate in recognizing the many racially oppressive narratives that perpetuate the myth of white supremacy. If you buy into any of these racist narratives, you are engaging in racism, which makes you a racist. 45 is one of the worst racists because he's putting it into policy. Let's talk about some of these racist narratives. Okay? Racism goes both ways. No, it does not. Racial prejudice can go both ways. Racial discrimination can go both ways. And racial hatred certainly goes both ways. Racism involves power and privilege. Big difference. It's a one-way street. Racism is having the ability to impose, inflict, and demonstrate unjustifiable prejudice, discontentment, and disapproval of a group of people with the power to manifest the reality of that through systemic discrimination, economic disadvantage, social unfairness, political inequities, degrading social and educational structures, and oppressive institutions. Persons of color have neither the power nor the privilege or the position to manifest racism's genocidal components. The institution of racism serves only one thing, and that's to perpetuate the myth of white supremacy and to disguise the ongoing methods of colonialism, colonization, and unequitable distribution of wealth. Okay, that was narrative number one. Narrative number two, which probably should have come first, is I can determine whether or not I'm a racist using my own subjective criteria. A racist is not determined by the quality of one's self-assessed heart. You can have a wonderful heart and still be a racist. You can also be an anti-racist and be an utter asshole. Niceness, and especially being nice to a black person, is not any kind of pass out of racism. You can still have a neighbor left and be a serial killer. Just because you miss them does not make you not a serial killer. Racism works the same way. There are people who are racist out of ignorance, like most of us began, and then there are people who are racist because they are willfully ignorant and therefore assholes. Next narrative. Kneeling to protest police brutality is unpatriotic. Says who? White people? What qualifies them to determine whether it's patriotic or not? Being white? White people want to call that disrespectful and unpatriotic. Black people and anti-racists call kneeling patriotic. We call it respectful. What makes you think white people, their opinions should prevail? Are you a white supremacist? Then you're a racist. Because if you think white people's opinions should automatically prevail, you're the R word. Okay? Next. Black people shoot themselves. Honey, white people shoot themselves. We just don't get credit for it. See, black people are the only ones who get to be blamed for being killed. That is a racist narrative. Okay? Next. Anyone can pull themselves up by their bootstraps. For generations, white people were the only ones who were allowed to have jobs. Black people need not apply. That means generation after generation of familial wealth that gets built. So aren't you lucky you were born into a family where your boots could be taken for granted? Racist. Next. All lives matter. To say that, what you're saying is somehow it offended you that someone said the black ones matter. If the black ones matter, why do you have to say all lives matter? Because you want to make sure the black ones don't matter too much. Not okay. That's racist. Next. Black Lives Matter is anti-white or anti-cop. We are only anti-bad cop. Why do you have a problem with that? Because you're a racist. Easy peasy. Okay, next. Where do we go? Talking about racism makes things worse. For who? White people? Because we're guilty? Not so sure. The language, the code of that is, don't inconvenience me about the problems that white people impose on black people. It's not convenient for me to hear. That's what makes things worse, not talking about it, because you can't fix something you refuse to recognize. Okay? Next. Racism is a side item. Racism doesn't hurt anyone, or it's dying out, or it's not a real problem. Yeah, for you. Okay? White people treat racism like a side item, like homelessness, poverty, hunger, being shot by a police officer, racism. No. See, racism, for black people, racism is the reason they are homeless, they are hungry, they have poverty, and they're being shot by police officers. That's the privilege of being white, is you don't even get to know that. Okay? Bottom line is, you're either a racist or you're a racist in recovery. Hopefully, your conscience and your brains will encourage you to continue to educate yourself so that you stop being a racist and start being an anti-racist. We got to level the playing field. This is our problem. We are the monster. If you want to clean this up, you got to start with you. You got to humiliate yourself, get humble, and learn to recognize your own racist narratives that you've been buying into all your life. Don't want to be a racist? Don't ever say, I'm not a racist. You are dead spot on, caught on the money if you do that. So, think about that. Go well. Thank you. Carry on.